Hari Hari. Gita Satsang 21, verses 32 through 35 of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. What is love? Arjuna is continuing to speak toward Krishna. Remember, they are now in the midst of the armies of both parties, and Arjuna is losing it. And he says, O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Quite a few things are happening here. In the previous verses, we saw how he was overcome by distress, dropped the Bogandiva from his hand, sat down, his skin is burning. He is completely incapable of even standing upright. That is the anguish Arjuna is feeling. He addresses Krishna using these titles, Madhusudana, Janardana. These titles are very significant in understanding Arjuna's question of Krishna. Arjuna is known as Janardana, the maintainer of all living entities. Madhusudana. Madhu was a demon, a great demon that Krishna killed in the beginning of creation. But Arjuna is not standing in front of demons. Arjuna is standing in front of his fathers-in-law, brothers, grandsons, teachers. These are not demons. These are not enemies like Madhu. So Arjuna is in a way accusing Krishna. Krishna hasn't said anything. Krishna hasn't done anything. Arjuna is projecting all of this onto Krishna. Arjuna was the one who invited Krishna, who asked Krishna to come to the battle of Kurukshetra, to take part in the war, and to be his charioteer. Krishna was peacefully sleeping in Dwaraka. But now Arjuna is blaming Krishna. Oh, my dear Madhusudana, why are you asking me to kill my relatives? Krishna didn't ask you to kill your relatives. Krishna had nothing to do with it. In spiritual circles and religious communities, oftentimes not even just spiritual circles or religious communities, human beings oftentimes blame God for the stupidity, for the harm, for the terrible things that happen on this planet, in this world, and to other living entities. And we blame Krishna. We blame the Supreme. We blame God. That is another presentation for another time. This is what Arjuna is doing here. Krishna had nothing to do with Arjuna's choice to bring Krishna to the battle of Kurukshetra. It was Arjuna who asked Krishna to be his charioteer. It was Arjuna who asked Krishna to drive the chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. And now Arjuna is saying, my dear Krishna, how can you ask me to do this and to do that and to kill my this and to kill my that? And he's already trying to forestall Krishna's answers by saying, Madhusudana, you killed demons. You killed enemies. You killed people who were truly harmful to the world and society. You are asking me, Krishna did not ask him anything, but Arjuna is projecting, you are asking me to kill my fathers-in-law, teachers, grandfathers, grandsons, brothers. How can you ask this of me? You are Janardana. You are the maintainer of all people. And yet you're asking me to engage in this ghastly warfare. This is all distraction. This is all distraction. Arjuna is bringing up all these arguments and he's trying to blame Krishna for what he is going through. All distractions. It comes in the very last sentence of the verse, the true reality, the true issue that Arjuna is grappling with. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? It's about Arjuna's attachments. It is because of Arjuna's attachments that he finds himself in such anxiety. And he's trying to couch his attachments as love. Love for his grandfather, love for his grandsons, love for his brothers-in-law, friends, and other family members. He's trying to drape his attachments in love. And he does this very cleverly by addressing Krishna as Madhusudana. You did not have to kill the people you loved, you killed the people you hated, a demon. You are Janardana, you are the maintainer of all people. How can someone who is the maintainer of all people ask me to act in a way that is contrary to the principles of love? I am supposed to love all people just as you, but yet you are asking me to kill. He is trying to hide behind love. He is trying to hide his attachments, to dress up his attachments as love. And we all attempt to do this. Not attempt, we all do this. And this is why our relationships, our lives are fraught from beginning to end and plagued from beginning to end with all kinds of anxieties. Because we have innumerable attachments and we dress them up as something other than. We dress them up as love. So the question is, what is love? If we mistake our attachments to be love, what is love? Attachments get in the way of love. Attachments restrict our consciousness. Attachments are like a spotlight. They focus in on a very, very specific thing and they cannot focus on anything else. That's what an attachment does. Love is a floodlight. Love reveals everything. Everything becomes available. Everything becomes known. Everything becomes revealed in the floodlight that is love. But as we harbor and maintain and develop attachments, our consciousness becomes like a spotlight, and we can see nothing outside of that which we have illuminated through our attachments. And then fear, anxiety, all these things develop from the fear of loss. the fear of missing out. Because the only thing we can see is that object of our attachment. And we do whatever we can to maintain that object within our control. And we know anyone with any level of honesty and integrity, intellectual integrity, knows 95% of our life is beyond our control. You have no idea whether you will survive the day. Let's be, not to be morbid, but to be intellectually honest. The chances are you will, but you have no guarantee of knowing that that is going to be the case. We have no control over whether or not we will be alive at the end of the day. No control over that. Similarly, with nearly every aspect of our life, there are so many influences beyond our control, but the spotlight of our attachments focus all of our energy, all of our concentration, all of our consciousness on possessing and hanging on to those attachments, with the underlying inevitable anxiety that those attachments will somehow disappoint us, leave us, go away. So there's always this underlying, unspoken, unrealized, but very real element of anxiety and distress. When we are attached to someone in a relationship, when we are attached, we cannot choose love. Attachments stifle relationships. There is no freedom for the other nor for ourselves when we are bound by attachments. We smother, we restrict ourselves and others with our attachments. We are unable to even contemplate, let alone experience, the numerous possibilities available in that relationship because we are attached of the relationship being or appearing or manifesting in a way that suits our attachments. That is not love. Attachments stifle, smother, suffocate love. But attachments are what we know. Attachments are what we are used to. Attachments are the area of familiarity which gives us our sense of identity, stability, and security. We therefore hold on to our attachments. We grasp and we cling to, not hold on, we cling to our attachments because our attachments are a source of our personal security, of our personal identity. So what is the antidote, if you will? Detachment. Detachment. Detachment is not what you think it is. Detachment is not callousness. Detachment is not indifference. Detachment is that floodlight. Detachment is a floodlight that reveals our existence fully and completely in every aspect, on every level. Attachments are based on an erroneous belief. This erroneous belief is that with my attachments, with these things to which I'm attached, I can experience happiness. I can experience security. I can experience stability. I can experience this is my identity. That's what attachments are. Attachments are erroneous, inaccurate beliefs that things, objects, peoples, what have you, outside of ourselves are the source of our identity, are the source of our satisfaction, are the causes of our pleasure and happiness. That is the statement Arjuna is giving here. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? He is believing that pleasure comes from outside of himself. Satisfaction, identity, fulfillment comes from outside of himself. Therefore, if I engage in this activity, what will I get from outside of myself that is pleasurable, that is contenting, that is satisfying, that is uplifting? That is an erroneous belief. That is how we know it is an attachment. An attachment is an erroneous belief. That's all it is. That is all it is. It is the belief that something outside of ourselves is the cause and the source of our well-being. Purnamadha Purnamidham Purnad Purnamudhachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. The first verse of Ishopanishad. Beautiful, powerful Upanishad. The Supreme is perfectly complete. Everything that comes from the Supreme is also perfectly complete. That, my friend, is you and I. We come from the Supreme. We are part and parcel of the Supreme. Mamaivam sa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Mamaivangsha. They are part of me. Jiva bhuta sanatana. They are eternally parts of me, Krishna says. So we are part and parcel of the complete whole. And while we are a part, we are still complete wholes. And the Supreme still remains complete in itself. We are perfectly complete. We require nothing, absolutely nothing outside of us to experience happiness, satisfaction, joy, gratification, upliftment. Everything we require for our well-being, we are the embodiment of that. That's called Brahman. We are Brahman. We are all qualitatively one with the Supreme Brahman, Para-Brahman, which is Krishna. So we have been conditioned in this world that we are not enough. We require something outside of ourselves for pleasure. We require something outside of ourselves to be complete, to be whole. That is an erroneous belief, and that causes attachments. So if attachments are an erroneous belief, detachment is the accurate belief. The accurate belief that we are Brahman, we are perfectly complete, we require nothing outside of ourselves to experience, to manifest our complete, perfect nature. This is called self-realization. Brahman realization. We are Brahman. Brahman realization. That is self-realization. Self-realization is detachment. Detachment is love. If you get nothing else from this, detachment is love. Because in detachment, the floodlight of consciousness is shined upon the world. And we see our existence and total reality in full. We recognize that there is nothing outside of us that is the cause or the source of our complete, perfect being. Our complete and perfect experience of our existence. Nothing outside of us can take that away. Nothing outside of us can provide that. We are that. That is detachment. When we are detached, or rather the detached person experiences love fully, manifests love fully, without worry, without fear, and there is freedom for all involved. It is not indifference. It is not we do not care. The detached person cares for all the right reasons, whether or not the individual remains in relationship with the detached person. The detached person recognizes what is to the betterment of all involved and is able to choose the option that leads to the betterment of all involved. An attached person cannot do that. An attached person wants the relationship to be in a specific way. The attached person wants to have the relationship. The attached person cannot conceive of the relationship not being available. So what does that attached person do? They manipulate. They force. They deliver ultimatums, demands, blackmail. They resort to the attached person does everything to hold on to their, is that love? Is that love? The detached person operating with a floodlight, everything is revealed, chooses to act for the betterment of all involved because the detached person is self-realized. The detached person knows that no matter what happens with this relationship, I am perfectly complete. The detached person does not put the pressure on the other for their happiness. One person just said to me recently, we were talking about a mutual friend, and they were saying, oh, she makes him so happy. I did not want to put on my philosophical hat and say, well, that's a problem. I just have to, of course, allow the conversation to go as and proceed as it was. But if his wife is trying to make him happy, believes that she is the cause of his happiness, and this poor fellow also has the attachment that he thinks his wife's duty is to make him happy, there can only be, inevitably, tension, worry, and disappointment. Doesn't mean it leads to the breakup of the relationship. I'm simply saying that that's not love. That is two people with an erroneous belief. The wife believing that she is the source of her husband's happiness. The husband believing that he requires his wife to be happy, or to behave in a certain way, to dress in a certain way, to be a certain way in order for him to be happy. They're both operating with attachments, and neither of them can exist with any measure of freedom for fear of losing the attachments to which they have clung on to, or to which they cling. Do we call this love? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We call this love. It's not love. It's two people operating with erroneous beliefs. But what does it bring? It brings a measure, a false sense of security. That's what it brings. It is a false sense of security. It is a temporary sense of security because there are so many things outside of that relationship that will influence it. And if these two individuals have a belief system that puts emphasis on outside influences as the source or the cause of their reality, or their being, rather, then they're going to be susceptible to all kinds of external influences. She is going to be susceptible to her friends in her ear. He's going to be susceptible to his friends in his ear. And it's all based on what these two individuals are attached to, their erroneous belief. Two detached individuals in relationship, both recognizing that they are complete, perfectly complete individuals, able to experience ananda regardless of what goes on around them. They will give both freedom to be, to do, to live, while simultaneously being in a loving relationship. Because these two detached people, even if one of them is detached, are able to experience a relationship, not putting their experience of ananda on the relationship. The relationship itself is merely added spice, is merely garnish. For that individual. When the relationship ends, the person who is attached grieves in a way that is unhealthy, that is in many ways untrue. What am I going to do? What's going to happen to me? I'm going to miss this person. The grief is about themselves somehow being less, somehow unable to experience satisfaction in life, somehow losing their identity. That's a big one. Losing their sense of identity when a relationship changes. And then become overwhelmed like Arjuna. Completely overwhelmed, not knowing who they are, what they're going to do, what they're going to experience, how they're going to derive pleasure. The individual who is detached, they also grieve. They grieve fully, completely, without the narcissism attached. Their grief is one that is based in truth of the relationship. That yes, they may no longer be able to experience a relationship with this person because this person has gone away in whatever way the separation may have happened, whether it's death or the person's left for another, whatever it may be. A self-realized person who is detached will experience grief, but it is not a grief based on what the individual is going to be, come, do, or live. It is a grief that is based in the true reality. I am perfectly complete. That individual is perfectly complete. What is missing is our interaction. So the self-realized person, the detached person, will grieve the loss of the interactions in that relationship. But they will not grieve in the sense that far too many people, most people grieve in this world when they're living based on attachments. They grieve for a sense of loss of self-identity. What am I going to do? What am I going to be? I've always been married. I've always been a mother. I've always been a son. They're grieving loss of things. They're grieving loss of identification. They're grieving the loss of a sense of false security. They're grieving the loss of things that we naturally have as part of our being. Let's talk about, and this may make more sense by talking about the detached person, by talking about what it means to be detached. Detached is, we're talking about self-realization here. Detachment is the result of being self-realized. Self-realized involves three components. Self-realization requires self-awareness, number one. Self-knowledge. To have self-understanding of who we are, our true spiritual identity. Self-knowledge, that's self-awareness. In the beginning, that self-knowledge, that self-awareness will be intellectual. I am a spirit being. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. That is just a mechanical phrase that we may say. That is an affirmation. That is an intellectual acceptance. But that's where it starts. Dhyana. It is nothing more in the beginning than an intellectual exercise, a mental meditation, dhyana. And that on which we meditate becomes sangha. It becomes part of who we are. We associate with it. We realize it. Dhyayata vishayam pumsa sangas teshu pujayate. If we contemplate on the sense objects, we become attached to the sense objects. It becomes our reality. If we contemplate Brahman, we associate and become attached, in a sense, realize is a better word in this situation because it's spiritual. It is a realization of our true selves, an association with that, a connection with that, a relationship with Brahman. So the first is self-awareness, the first part of self-realization. The second part is self-mastery. Mastery of the mind and body, mastery of the emotions, mastery of our impulses. This does not mean we don't have emotions. It simply means that our emotions do not determine the choices we make. That's all. Our rampant desires that come from the senses do not dictate the choices we make. That is self-mastery. We make choices based on our realization of Aham Brahmasmi. We make choices based on the realization that has happened in self-awareness, that we are spirit beings having a human experience. So the choices we make are not determined on the demands of the material body and the fickleness and the capriciousness of the desires of the mind and the emotions. That is self-mastery. Third is self-actualization. That means we live up to our greatest potential. Because we have self-awareness spiritually and we have self-mastery of the body and mind, we then go through life engaged in activities, engaged in careers, in vocations that realize our full and complete potential. This is Swadharma. We fully utilize, we fully engage our mind, body, and senses to their greatest potential in this world. That is what it means to be self-realized. That is self-realization. Those three components combined. When we achieve those three, when those three have been achieved and we have self-realization, detachment is automatic. It is the natural result. We are detached because we are self-aware. Our identity comes from our self-awareness, who we are. Our identity does not come from outside of us, does not come from a relationship outside of us, does not come from a role in the world. Our identity, our unique individual identity, comes from our self, knowledge of ourself, the recognition of ourself, our core spiritual being. So there is nothing outside of us to which we need to be attached for self-identity. We have our identity. We do not need a relationship. We do not need a title. We do not need a position. We do not need a responsibility or a role outside of ourselves to have security in our identity. And then we have mastery. Because we know who we are, and that the world around us is merely a covering, we are able to make choices not based on the world around us, but based on our true identity. We are not controlled by the desires of our senses. We are not controlled by the capriciousness of our mind. We are not controlled by the emotions of our nature. We make choices and we act according to a spiritual identity that we possess. That perfect, complete realization of our spiritual identity. And because we are not controlled by such things, we then act in this world. That is the third component, self-actualization. We live and we go through this world realizing the true and complete potential of our mind and our body. No one dictates to us. No one can force us to do something we do not choose to do. And that choice is based on self-realization. We are not susceptible to demands of others. We are not susceptible to the manipulations of others. We're also not susceptible to the praise, to the validation provided by the world and by others, which in turn means we're not susceptible to such manipulation. This is a self-realized person. So when a self-realized person then chooses love, and that's the key. Love is a choice. Love is not a feeling. Love is a choice. Love is a choice that only a person who is free can make. Only a detached person can choose love. Only a self-realized person can choose love. Because a self-realized person is not controlled by things, events, situations outside themselves. The self-realized person has the freedom to make their own choices in any given situation. So the self-realized person experiences detachment. The self-realized person, because they live in detachment, they're able to choose love, which we will now call bhakti. The self-realized person, the detached person, makes the best mother, the best father, the best husband, the best wife, the best leader, the best business manager, the best everything. The person who is detached, they make the best decisions for the betterment of all involved because they are not controlled by the need, or rather the needs, plural, of their attachments. They have no attachments. What do they say? A neurosurgeon is completely incapable of operating on their child. The world-class doctor, surgeon, is unable to operate on their child for one reason and one reason only. They are compromised. They are compromised by their attachment. We like to call it love. No, attachment. They can no longer see straight because of their attachments. They will make the wrong moves, the wrong decisions because of their attachment. The self-realized person can indeed perform that surgery. Doesn't mean they don't care. They care fully. They are the best able to perform, whether they are the father of the child or just a surgeon. The detached person, the self-realized person, will always make the best decision because their decisions are not based on attachments. Once attachments come into play, fear, anxiety, worry, on so many levels. I can't make a mistake. I'm going to lose my license. I can't do this. That's my best friend. It's my child. It's my this. I can't make a mistake. I can't make a mistake. But if I do this, they've lost all objectivity when attachments are in play. The self-realized person, when they choose to be in relationships of bhakti, because love is a choice, bhakti is a choice, being self-realized is the foundation of a relationship of love. But a self-realized person may not choose a relationship or relationships. But when they choose relationships, their detachment enables them to live in such relationships, and they can choose bhakti. Bhakti cannot be chosen if we have attachments. So, if you get nothing else from this, get this. Attachment is not love. Attachments are erroneous beliefs that something outside of ourselves are the source or the cause of any aspect of our well-being, our identity, security, satisfaction. We put all of our identity, all of our need for experiencing satisfaction outside of ourselves. Those are attachments. And it's just a belief. Attachments are erroneous beliefs. That's all they are. Our beliefs must be changed, purified, if you will. That is detachment. Detachment is the recognition, Purnamadha, Purnamidham, Purnat, Purnamudhachyate. I am perfectly complete. I am a perfectly complete whole. I am part of the Supreme, but even though I am part of the Supreme, I remain and am a perfectly complete whole, and the Supreme also remains perfectly complete. In my perfect completeness, I have everything I need, everything I require for my perfect, complete existence. Nothing outside of me can provide that. Nothing outside of me can take it away. That is detachment. That is self-realization. Self-realization is not an achievement. We do not achieve self-realization. One can achieve self-realization. Achieving self-realization is not difficult. One can achieve or experience self-realization in 30 minutes. You can sit with me and in 15, 20 minutes, I can have you experiencing what it means to be self-realized. Self-realization, achieving self-realization is easy. And the reason why it's easy to achieve is because that's our inherent nature. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So connecting to our spirituality is the easiest thing to do in our world because it is who we are. Achieving self-realization is easy. But self-realization, in truth, is not an achievement. It's a habit. It is a habit. That is the difficulty. We are habitually used to giving our security, giving our well-being, or rather investing our security, investing our well-being in external attachments. That is what we are familiar with. That is our habit. Self-realization is not our habit. And that is a difficulty. You've experienced it. You go to a wonderful kirtan, you go to a temple, a mandir, a mosque, a church. You have powerful experiences of self-realization. You leave, you go to a parking lot and get in a knockdown, drag-out fight with your husband, with your wife, with your children. Monday morning, you take the same mentality and you have a knockdown, drag-out fight with your boss and you quit. You go home and file divorce papers. You kick your children out of the home. When not 12 hours before, you were self-realized. You experienced self-realization. You connected with your perfectly complete spiritual self, with the perfectly complete Supreme. Self-realization is easy to achieve. Incredibly difficult to sustain. That's where it has to become a habit. That requires practice. It's just development. It is retaining that retaining self-awareness, self-mastery, and self-actualization when we leave the kirtan, when we leave the mosque, when we leave the church, when we leave the synagogue, the mandir, and get in the car and in the parking lot. Retaining that sense of self-knowledge, self-mastery, self-actualization when we're sitting in a traffic jam. That's the difficulty. It is the habit of self-realization that is the difficulty, not the achievement. Love is not a feeling. Love is not a feeling. Attachment is not love. Love is a choice. And love is a choice only a person who is detached has the freedom to choose. Hari Hari.